Okay, so for part 3, and this will be the last one before the draft, considering the draft is tomorrow, I wanted to go through some frequently asked questions or things that I thought might be helpful. So just spoiler alert at the beginning, I do think this is helpful for everybody, but if you have no interest in learning things, which some of you have definitely said is in your wheelhouse here, you are fine with your knowledge and you'll go ahead forward, that's totally fine. You have more than enough info that you need to get through tomorrow's draft and get things started. For those who want to feel a little bit more prepared or have a few ideas of what's up ahead, I thought answering these, I believe, 6 questions might help. So here we go. Okay, in terms of some of the financial or drink-related consequences, I think I mentioned it. I don't want to go too crazy. We're not going high-end here, but I don't know how Switzerland feels about all of this. We mentioned the dollar amount. I think it's 25 francs per team. How that's going to work is at the end of the regular season, there's going to be a number 1 seed. Essentially, you've won the regular season. You've got the top seeding going in. I thought that was worth enough to get your money back. I'll explain the playoffs when we get to that part of it. But the top 3 after the playoffs will also get something, whereas the third get them back, and then first and second a non-equal split. So hopefully that helps. The one that might require a little bit more explanation, and please do not worry if you don't understand this completely, I will be running this. I just want to let you know how it's going to be run so you're not mad later on when I send you an email. So the drink consequence is kind of the fun part where it's just an excuse for us to get together. It seems like anytime there's a holiday or a birthday or even someone just feels like they want to have people over at their pool, we get together, but this just gives us an added incentive to do so and maybe makes us think differently about how we're doing it. So I am stealing this from another league and I've made one tweak to it. So in the previous league I did this in, there was 14 teams. So in a 15-week regular season, the playoffs do not count for the drink consequence. The lowest point total. So I told you it's head-to-head matchups and that's all that matters is your wins and your loss. But we do have a final total for each week. Whoever is the lowest is going to owe a round of drinks with some caveats. So what that means, let's say I am the loser overall of total points in week 1. That means I owe a round of drinks. If I lose again in round 2, I now owe 2 rounds of drinks. I could have bought a drink round in between, and I'll explain that in just a second, or I can hold and try and do both at the same time. That's fine. At the end of, let's say, week 3, I'm still the lowest score total. You do not have to buy after 2, okay? You're out. But if we did the 2 max for everybody with 8 teams, everybody would have to buy twice except for once, and that kind of makes it not as fun. Part of this is to see, can I squeak out without having to buy a round? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 3rd week. Technically, if I'm the first 3, the 3rd week is a dead week. No one knows for that week, and that's fine because 15 rounds of drinks is tough to schedule. I know it's awesome, and we'd love to do it. And it still might happen, right? It can operate that way. But I think it's tough with our schedules to figure all that out. Okay, so that week will just be a dead week. On the 4th week, assuming I am worst again, I count as a person and in the league in terms of my win-losses, but in the drink game, I'm still welcome to join in the drinks because I've sure bought my fair share, but I no longer count in that tally. So the week 4, if I'm the worst one again, it goes to the next lowest. Again, I will keep track of this. I will make sure everyone's on the right side of this. But I just don't want you to get angry if on Tuesday morning, because that's typically when the week is done. Monday night game finishes by the time some of us wake up. I don't know your schedule. By work day on Tuesday, I'll send you an email saying, unfortunately, you owed a round of drinks this week. Now, what that means, you get to decide the where and the when. Okay, so if there's a bar or an area that you just really always wanted to go to, as long as it is not within regular working hours from Monday to Friday, so any weekend, even if not everyone's here, that's totally fine. I don't expect everyone to be able to make it for every single week. In fact, that would be shocking. There's no way that's going to happen. But that's part of the fun, is sometimes you get a bunch of people, sometimes you just get a couple, and we get to catch up for whoever can make it for that drink. So let's say I say this bar, I'm going to be there Wednesday night from 7:30 to 9. If you show up, you get a round. Some people like it where you're like, well, technically I owe 8 rounds, so I'm going to show up and buy 8 drinks for if 3 people show up, then we get as many as we'd like. Some people, no, you only really owe 1 per team, and that matters for the people who are multiple people in a team. If you both show up, the person could be very nice and say, well, I thought I was going to buy 8 anyway, and there's not 8 people here, I'm willing to buy, or I don't care, both of you can have drinks. Technically, they only owe you one per team. You are also splitting the buy-in, so I think that's fair. But technically, if you lose, you only have to buy one per team as well. So hopefully that makes sense. If you don't want to go to a restaurant because it's crazy expensive here, you can do the same thing. I'm going to bring champagne to the park, or I'm going to bring beers to the park. Pearl de Lac, Sunday, 3 to 5. You show up, you get a drink. Fine. In your backyard, hypothetically, if you have a pool and you want to make this more of a festive Sunday or Saturday, again, you just name the time and the place and we show up. If you want to double down, okay, maybe you're in a household where there's more than one team, and so you can join together and say, all right, the two of us are going to buy our 3 total rounds at this time. Totally fine. You just have to let me know what you want so I cross you off the list and I make sure you've paid in full. So piggybacking on other people's weekends, just ask them so we don't have like 15 rounds of drinks saved up for one time that we meet up. That would be awesome, but then we each would have to drink 15 drinks, and that might be, there's other human costs to that other than just the financial ones. So I'm sure we can figure that out. It's also nice if we can do this before Super Bowl. So our league season will end at the end of the calendar year, roughly. I think week 17 or 18 is just early January. Super Bowl is not till mid-February or early February, so we got time. Okay. So hopefully that adds a nice little spice to each week of fantasy football. Okay, this is definitely in the danger of just teaching you terms, but I do think that terms can be helpful because they're used quite often. So just to give an idea, I've on a couple league pages here. Don't ask me how many I'm in. I will lie to you. A few things that are often referred to, if you notice again, and some of this I've said in other videos, so just bear in mind, I know I say a lot of things, so just this might help. They're in the white or they're with these positions. This is my starting lineup, so these are the people that are on my team that I have that other people can't take that are going to get points for me if I leave them in when week 1 starts. The players in the gray, I still have them. No one can take them, but I do not get points. Remember, sometimes you're going to have a lot of points on the bench. It is what it is. They're going to help you cover the bye weeks. So remember, each team, and I think I'm covering this in another question, they get 1 bye week. So during week 9, I'm going to have another quarterback and another wide receiver to help cover this, and another running back. That's not going to be a good week. But you figure it out and you make some adds and drops, which is what I'm going to be doing with the rest of this. My suggestion, if your screen doesn't look like this with the blue bubbles, go to swap mode instead of classic mode. I just find it's a lot easier because then I go here. Let's say I want a Rashaad White in for Jahan Dotson. You don't have to know who those players are, but I just click. I'm like, I want White in. It highlights the players that I want in. I click. It makes the automatic change. It says up here in this little green thing, it's saved. It's done. So that person's going to be playing for me. The terms that you might have to get a little more comfortable with or familiar with. So these are the players that are on either my bench or on my starting roster, but they're on my team. If you'd like to get another player, and you're going to have to do this at different points in time, you're going to have to add and drop, you're going to have to trade. Well, trade is your choice, but just to let you know, those are big options. So to trade, essentially, I would create a trade. I click on the trade that I would like to trade, or the team I would like to trade with. If I wanted their quarterback and their wide receiver, I'd click here. I'd go down to my people. They can have my quarterback and my wide receiver. This doesn't mean it happens. It just means I'm going to continue and propose it. Send trade proposal means it would go to them. They get an email saying some idiot is sending you a trade, or it shows up in your team screen. You'll know if someone sent you a trade. It's always nice and pleasant to at least respond. So reject, or if you accept, as soon as you accept, the trade happens and they move. Now, if we think technically I have the ability to veto a trade, I would only do that if I suddenly, if my team wasn't doing that great and Jackie's was, and suddenly I'm trading her all my really good teams for her, or players for her bad players. That's cheating. We're friendly here. We're not going to do stuff like that. It's just technically we can cancel trades if they're not being fair. If we want to know if they're fair, evaluate the trade. In this particular case, it would tell me it's relatively fair because these were all guys taking a couple rounds, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cancel that trade request so Will, my friend, won't get curious as to what I'm doing. Okay, that doesn't happen very often, maybe just a couple times a season. Okay, so what typically happens is you do an add drop. So you either pick up a free agent or you have to get them on waivers. This league was done last week, so all players have cleared waivers. So to explain the term waiver, this is, again, I made reference to this. This is just to prevent me at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, I see an injury and I just made the move really quick. As soon as the players play, so you see here, like Detroit and Kansas City are going to play. So on Thursday night, really late for us, technically probably Friday morning, when that game starts, everybody in that Thursday game will get frozen, but only people in that Thursday game. When the Sunday games hit, everybody typically joins waivers then. Okay, so the Sunday games are 7 o'clock p.m. our time because it's 1 Eastern time. As soon as that's considered the massive kickoff. Every player hits waivers. So you can't make an add or a drop. You can move your bench around, okay, but you can't drop and add a player after that. Okay, they tend to go on waivers. If it's just an add drop like now and I want to go, I literally just click plus. If I want this player, I would have to click minus if I wanted to drop that player, and then hit a screen comes up. It says, do you want to? And then you go through, okay. And then you no longer have that player, but you've picked up the new player, okay? What it looks like when we hit waivers, so this has just drafted a couple days ago. So this is what the free agent screen will look like, or the player screen, Wednesday when we sign in. Hopefully by Thursday it's gone so people can make some add drops. I'll see if I can figure that one out. But if you would like to add a player by waivers, okay, that is a little bit different. What it means is you'll add the request. It gives it until this date or deadline. Now, when all players are under it, that's one thing. If there's just been a drop, the player who's just been dropped will be on their own, but it'll tell you the date. And as soon as that date happens, the waivers are processed. Okay? How the waivers essentially work is you're given a number. 1 is the first waiver priority, 8 is the last. Again, I'm already boring and losing some of you, I can tell. Raf got the 8 pick, so he gets first waiver. So what that means is, let's say we both wanted Tom Brady, and he bid and I bid. It doesn't matter when. When the Tom Brady goes to clear waivers, it'll go to priority. So Raf would get it. I wouldn't lose my spot. Now, after Raf loses it, he goes to the bottom of the league and he'll get 8th unless other people are getting waivers as well. This may or may not happen. You might be the kind of person who's super active. You may have not needed to know that. I just wanted to explain it because I do think it helps. Okay, in terms of league season and schedule, so if I go to standings here, obviously we don't have any yet, but they'll all be up here, how many points you've scored against. The win-loss total will be the most important, and this was just here under league members, team standings, okay? The standings will actually come up naturally once we start playing. Winning or losing streak, how many in a row, waiver priority, as I mentioned in the previous question, how many moves have we made all year long. This is just if you'd like to know. They don't really do much for you, but the schedule is going to tell you who you play and when, okay? 15 weeks is the regular season. So after week 15, we will have a top 4 and a bottom 4. Okay, in the playoffs, we go 2 rounds. So that's week 16 and week 17. Now, technically, the NFL has 18 weeks, but the last week is always kind of a joke. People are benched. And usually if you have one of the better players and one of the better teams, they might not even be playing week 18 because they already know if they've won the playoffs or not, or they're in the playoffs, or not. So the fantasy season, this follows the normal schedule. If we had more teams, like 10 or 12, we would probably only have a 14-week regular season because we'd add an extra round of playoffs. For us, the playoffs are going to be top 4, bottom 4. So if you're in the top 4, you move on to the championship side, okay, where you can play for the money. That's where we decide our 1, 2, 3. So the number 1 overall, like I said, in the regular season, that's nice. You get your money back. But top 4 make the semifinals. Bottom 4, just for pride, it's the consolation round. You'll still technically have games week 16 and 17. Feel free to play them because if this is a pride-based league, you can make your side bets or your trash talks to the people that you're playing. So effectively, we will have a ranking from 1 to 8 at the end of the year. Okay, we had a question about point breakdown, which is always really important. If I go to league and settings, now I'm going to do this quick. If you would like to go into more depth and detail, feel free. This is kind of all of our setup, but below that is our points. So as you're going to notice, and again, some of this is repeat, some of this is new, and some of this you don't have to care about. The points can happen magically. Passing touchdowns are worth less because quarterbacks tend to have more touchdowns than other positions. Rushing touchdowns 6, receiving 6. It's a 0.5. I think I messed that up in a previous one, so you get half a point for every catch. And then it's a yards-based bonus, and decimal points do count. Okay, so if I ran for 8 yards, I would get 0.8 points because 10 points is 1. I did bonuses because I want this to be a high-scoring league. I want people to make a lot of points and get a lot of points, and that can be part of the excitement. You can always come back. So if a quarterback throws for 300 yards in a single game or 450 or 500, you get additional points as they go through, plus the fact that those are extra points that you get per yards. Same with running and receiving. You get point at 100, one at 150, one at 200. 200 is extremely rare, but it will happen this season, and based on some people that I know are out there, it's better chances than others. You do get negative points if they fumble the ball and the other team gets it, or if the quarterback throws an interception. There are negatives there. I wanted to do the big bust points. So essentially, if there's a 40 or more yard play, whether it's just a completion, a run, a reception, or it results in a touchdown, you're going to get some additional bonus points for the kind of fun. Kickers here, you can take a look. Okay, obviously the longer the kick, the more points you get. And then defense, not letting up points is good. Letting up way too many points, you can put in the negatives. But there's all this stuff, the things like the fumble recoveries, interceptions, sacks, stuff like that. Again, you can just take a defense that's ranked high, or you can take a look because some of them might let up more points, but they get more sacks and interceptions. Or if they score a touchdown, you can get a lot of points there. So hopefully that helps, but take a look in your own time. Okay, in terms of positions and value, I could definitely talk to you a lot about this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to cut myself off a bit, but there was a little bit, I got a question from someone not on the main chat group just talking about positions, that there's some more valuable than others. If you're reading an article and it tells you that, then that's just because they're trying to prove a point in that one. Historically, running backs have been the most valuable position just because they can both catch and run out of the backfield, so they have two ways of scoring. Some quarterbacks have that as well. They run a lot and they throw. Okay, so there's two ways they can get points, but that's more on the position, on the player than the position. Because even running backs now, if you are in one of our first conversations that started this whole ball rolling with the Netflix series, and then the follow-up with running backs maybe not being as valued, a lot of teams have multiple running backs, so they might have running backs that specialize in certain things. So I would say a running back that is gets the dominant amount of carries out of the backfield, or the dominant amount of catches or time on the field, they will have more value, but that doesn't mean all running backs are. Just like some quarterbacks are mobile, meaning they run and they throw, they tend to be the more valuable fantasy quarterbacks, but it's not really done by position anymore. Wide receiver, there's tons of depth, but some of them are seen as some of the top picks you're supposed to pick in the first couple rounds, but there's a ton of them out there. So it's all about depth of talent and the differentiation between who the top five are and who maybe they call them RB2s, RB3s. What that means is they're ranked in the 20s or 30s. Okay, so there is a lot more variance there. Typically, the least valuable position is the kicker, just because it's pretty fluky. Any kicker can go out and have it. I mean, there's definitely better kickers than others, and you can look up and Yahoo will rank them accordingly. There's more teams, though, that put themselves in situations where kickers can score more points. Sometimes having a team that scores a lot of touchdowns means they only get the one extra point as opposed to field goals. But it's fluky week by week. In some leagues I'm in that people are hyper serious, they've gotten rid of kickers altogether. But that's why I'm suggesting that if someone is auto drafting, they will probably take kickers before I will. Definitely, I always have it as my last pick of the draft, just because I end up dropping them and adding them as I need them as the season goes on. Defenses, for some people, it's the same, but that's about it. So there really is no absolute answer to the depth, or is there a more important position than others? Okay, the most recent question, had to put a pause in filming and record this, so you're going to know exactly. Well, number one, you're going to know because it's telling me we have an hour and a day left, so you'll know how much or how late I left this. But there was a question about the drafting and if you're going to miss the draft and what that means or looks like. Okay, so if I go to draft and I go to pre-draft rankings, okay, so if you think you're going to miss the draft, or you're just nervous that there might be some issues, or you just want to be proactive on this. I don't do this, by the way, so I make my rankings as I go along, but I know some people that do. You go to edit my pre-draft rankings, and it brings up this screen. Now, if I'm not going to be there and I'm on auto draft, I could just trust Yahoo, and it will pick based on its best interest with players in mind. Now, Kelsey, you asked a question about the line in the draft. The line in the draft just tells you if everybody took the players in order, where you would be. So what that does is just kind of give you an idea of who might be around the realm according to Yahoo that you might want to pick. Now, you might not agree with their rankings. In fact, if you know a lot about football, sometimes you don't, right? Because you're going to have different opinions. If you don't, and there's just a couple players you've read on and you want to move them up and down, again, that does not draft for you automatically, and it doesn't take into positions. If you go to the mock draft video, it had that line up top that had 1 through 5 as the Yahoo suggestion. That does take position into account. And if hypothetically your name is Paul and hypothetically you're going to have to auto draft, Yahoo will take positions. It has to fill a roster. So unless you tell it not to, it'll take a kicker and a defense, before you take anyone on your bench, because it wants to make sure you have a full roster, and it will bear that in mind in your bench as well. Okay, how it would work if I really don't want to draft Mahomes and I just put him on the don't draft. Okay, but I don't want that because he's good, so I'm going to put him over here. Now, if I wanted to move people around, so I'm going to put these three, but I don't like the order. I think that that Hurts, sorry, I'm just going to move this up slightly, should go up one. So boom, whoops, boom, boom, bang. Now this has been saved. Okay, well, it is if I go to save changes. Okay, then that becomes my Yahoo list. Then when I get to the draft, I'm going to undo all changes just so it doesn't think I'm doing anything. All right. In the draft, my screen will be different than other people's screens. Now, that doesn't impact your queue, the star thing I showed you that Kelsey also asked about. That's one that the draft screen, just like the mocks, will be available about a half hour before our draft. So just after 8 o'clock, you'll see on the Yahoo page, this one here, you're going to go to League. And instead of saying view available mock drafts, around here near the top, it's going to be your league is drafting now. Do not panic. It doesn't mean it is drafting now. It means the draft screen is available now. Now, if you show up at 8:35, yes, it has already started. Okay, because it is time-based, so it will be sensitive to that. But if you click on beforehand, the draft screen, just like mocks, will pop up. Then you can start screwing around with things, building up your queue, changing a few things, just getting comfortable with what's going on. That is also when, and this is going to be the last question, so I will finish with this. That is also when I'm suggesting I will offer a video link. Okay, so I said I'd mentioned, now don't panic, it's probably going to be my Kenya account because it allows me to make Google Meets meetings last for longer than an hour with more than one person. If you have group settings, you need to pay the extra, and my school did, and my personal employer, who is nobody, has not paid me to do that yet. So, if you would like to log in then, we can just see each other, talk while the draft's going on, make it a bit more social. In that way, if you're having problems, I can also help you out. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You can just kind of draft as you like. And then Kelsey had mentioned, I think, multiple people in multiple homes. I think that was Kelsey and not Jules and Paul. Oh, no, it can't be because Paul's not drafting. It's really up to you. If you want to have a computer that has the one video on and you both sit behind it, that's fine. But you do need to have different computers for the actual drafting part. Now, if you're both going to have your computer screen or your cameras on, if you're in different rooms, it's a bit easier. If you're in the same room, you just have to do that thing you probably had to do sometimes in Zoom where one person's on mute and their volume is off, so we don't have that constant echo that goes on in the room, and plus you'll give yourself a massive headache. So I leave it to you to do that. Do you want like an iPad where that's the camera and then you're both on your computer sitting next to each other? Do you want to do the one on, one off, so one person we can't hear as well, but they can still see and be a part of it? Or do you want to go in separate rooms and you both have the cameras on? Up to you. Or, like I said, if you don't want to be in the video, you do not have to. I think that's pretty much it. That's covered all the stuff that I think was asked. I will answer any last questions. And remember, we are taking this way more seriously than I think you need to if you've gone this far. But I appreciate that because I like taking it that seriously. For those who are just going to shoot from the hip and draft funny names, trust me, you'll probably do just as well as everybody else. We'll just feel a little more attached to our picks. Can't wait. So as we can see, it's just 24 hours plus until we see each other. Can't wait, and good luck.